Marcus Caldwell's mansion stood like a fortress in Connecticut, hiding secrets behind marble walls. His 6-year-old daughter Harper hadn't eaten in 3 days, and nobody seemed to notice, until a new nanny discovered something that would shatter everything this billionaire family pretended to be. What started as stomach pain became a medical nightmare. What seemed like illness revealed itself as something far more sinister, and what everyone dismissed as a child's complaint turned into evidence of an unthinkable betrayal. Could you watch a child suffer and stay silent? Would you risk everything to save a life nobody else seemed to value? Quick question, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments and subscribe. Let's jump into the story. Ruth Morrison gripped her worn purse tighter as she stood before the Caldwell estate's iron gates. At 43, she'd seen enough wealthy families to know that money didn't buy happiness, but this job paid 3 times what she'd earned in her previous position. The gates swung open with an electronic hum, revealing a driveway that stretched longer than her entire street back in Hartford. "You must be the new nanny." A woman in designer athleisure appeared at the front door, her blonde hair pulled into a severe ponytail. "I'm Veronica Caldwell. My flight to Paris leaves in 2 hours, so let's make this quick." Ruth's trained eye immediately caught something off. The house felt wrong, too quiet, too cold despite the summer heat. "Of course, Mrs. Caldwell. I'm looking forward to meeting Harper. She's upstairs in her room, probably reading or something." Veronica waved dismissively, already scrolling through her phone. "Harper's 6, very independent. She knows the rules. No leaving the property, no answering the door. Bedtime at 8. My husband Marcus works late most nights. You'll barely see him. And her meals, any allergies I should know about." Veronica's perfectly microbladed eyebrows furrowed slightly. "She's been a bit picky lately. Don't force her if she doesn't want to eat. Kids go through phases." She grabbed a Louis Vuitton suitcase by the door. "The kitchen is fully stocked. Help yourself. There's a list of emergency numbers on the fridge, though you won't need them. Harper never gets sick." Ruth watched Veronica disappear into a waiting car without looking back toward the house, without calling out a goodbye to her daughter. Red flag number 1. The mansion's interior matched its cold exterior. White marble floors, minimal furniture, abstract art that cost more than Ruth's car. She climbed the curved staircase following the sound of nothing. The silence pressed against her ears. "Harper." Ruth knocked gently on a partially open door. "Hi, sweetheart, I'm Ruth. I'm going to be staying with you while your mum's away." The little girl sat cross-legged on an enormous bed, dwarfed by the king-sized frame. She had her mother's blonde hair, but her father's serious dark eyes. Those eyes held something Ruth had seen too many times in her career, a sadness that didn't belong on a 6-year-old's face. "Hi," Harper whispered, barely audible. Ruth entered slowly, keeping her movements non-threatening. "That's a beautiful room you have. Are those your drawings?" She gestured to papers scattered across a desk. Harper nodded, but didn't elaborate. Ruth noticed the girl's pale complexion, the dark circles under her eyes, the way her small hands rested protectively over her stomach. "Have you had lunch yet, sweetie?" "I'm not hungry." "That's okay. How about we go downstairs and I'll make myself a sandwich? You can keep me company if you'd like." Harper slid off the bed with visible effort, moving like every step hurt. Ruth's professional alarm bells started ringing louder. In the kitchen, Ruth made a turkey sandwich while Harper sat at the island, watching with an expression that seemed far too adult. Ruth kept up light conversation, asking about school, friends, favorite activities. Harper answered in monosyllables, her arms wrapped around her middle. "Does your tummy hurt, honey?" Harper's eyes widened slightly. Fear or relief, Ruth couldn't tell which. "A little. How long has it been hurting?" The girl looked down at the marble countertop. "I don't remember." Ruth set down her sandwich, completely focused now. "Harper, I need you to be honest with me, okay? This is really important. When was the last time you ate a full meal?" Silence stretched between them. Harper's eyes filled with tears. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're not in trouble. I just want to help you feel better." 3 days, Harper finally whispered. "I can't. It hurts too much." Ruth's heart dropped. You haven't eaten anything in 3 days, not even a snack. Harper shook her head. I tried yesterday, but it came back up. Everything comes back up. Does your mother know? I told her. She said I was being dramatic. Harper's voice cracked. She said I just wanted attention. Ruth fought to keep her expression calm, but inside, fury and fear warred for dominance. Okay, I'm going to call your father, all right? He needs to know you're not feeling well. He won't answer. Harper said it with such certainty that Ruth's heart broke a little more. He never does during work hours. Mom said not to bother him. Ruth pulled out her phone anyway, finding Marcus Caldwell's number on the emergency list. It went straight to voicemail. She left a message, keeping her tone professional but urgent. Mr. Caldwell, this is Ruth Morrison, your new nanny. I need to speak with you about Harper as soon as possible. She hasn't been able to eat for 3 days. Please call me back immediately. She hung up and looked at Harper's pale, frightened face. Honey, I think we should go see a doctor. No. Harper's response came too quickly, too panicked. No doctors, please. Mum said if I complained again, she'd send me away to that boarding school. Harper, please, Ruth, I'll try to eat. I promise I'll try. The desperation in her voice was heartbreaking. Ruth made a decision. Okay, no doctors right now, but I need you to try something for me. Just a few sips of water, okay? Can you do that? Harper nodded and accepted the glass Ruth offered. She brought it to her lips, took the tiniest sip, and immediately doubled over, water spraying from her mouth as she gagged violently. Ruth rushed around the island, rubbing Harper's back as the child retched into the sink, bringing up nothing but bile tinged with something that made Ruth's blood run cold. Was that blood? That's it, Ruth said firmly. We're going to the hospital, duh. But Mum said... I don't care what your mum said. Something is very wrong, Harper, and we need doctors to figure out what it is. Ruth kept her voice gentle but allowed no room for argument. I promise you're not going to any boarding school. You're going to get better. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Harper looked up at her with eyes full of pain and fear and desperate hope. She nodded. Ruth grabbed her purse, gently lifted Harper into her arms. The girl weighed far less than she should, and headed for her car. As she buckled Harper into the back seat, her phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. Take care of it quietly, or don't take care of it at all. V. Veronica. Somehow she already knew Ruth had called Marcus. How? Ruth deleted the text, started her car, and drove faster than she probably should have toward Hartford General. In her rearview mirror, Harper's pale face stared out the window, one small hand still pressed against her stomach, protecting something that had been slowly killing her for 3 days. And Ruth couldn't shake the feeling that this was no ordinary illness. The emergency room at Hartford General bustled with typical late-afternoon chaos. Ruth carried Harper through the automatic doors, the child's head resting limply against her shoulder. She'd gotten lighter during the 15-minute drive, or maybe Ruth's arms had gotten stronger with purpose. I need help, Ruth called to the triage nurse. 6-year-old can't keep anything down for 3 days, vomiting blood. The nurse, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and efficient movements, immediately gestured them toward a curtained area. Bring her back here. What's her name? Harper Caldwell. The nurse's hands paused for just a moment on her keyboard. Recognition flickered across her face. Everyone in Connecticut knew the Caldwell name, but professionalism took over. Has she been running a fever? I don't know. I just started working for the family today. Ruth laid Harper gently on the examination bed. The child curled immediately into a fetal position, whimpering. But she's in pain. Severe abdominal pain. A young doctor swept in, his name tag reading Dr. Chen. He had the slightly frazzled look of someone 6 hours into a 12-hour shift. Harper, I'm Dr. Chen. I hear your tummy is hurting pretty badly. Harper nodded, tears streaming silently down her pale cheeks. Can you show me where it hurts the most? Doctor. Chen's voice was gentle, practiced. Harper's small hand moved to her upper abdomen, just below her ribcage. Here, and sometimes it moves down. Dr. Chen pulled out his stethoscope, warming it between his hands before listening to Harper's chest and abdomen. His expression grew increasingly concerned. Her heart rate is elevated. Bowel sounds are almost absent. He looked at Ruth. You said she's been vomiting. Yes, and when she tried to drink water about 20 minutes ago, she couldn't keep it down. There was blood. Red blood or coffee ground appearance? Fresh red. Dr. Chen's jaw tightened. We need labs and imaging stat. I'm thinking obstruction, possibly perforation. He turned to the nurse. Get me a CBC, comprehensive metabolic panel, and portable X-ray. Start an IV with normal saline, and page Dr. Reeves from pediatric surgery. The words pediatric surgery made Harper sob harder. Ruth took her hand, squeezing gently. It's okay, sweetheart. They're going to help you feel better. But nothing about this felt okay. The next hour passed in a blur of needle sticks, imaging machines, and increasingly worried medical personnel. Harper bore it all with a stoicism that broke Ruth's heart. This child was too used to suffering in silence. Ruth tried Marcus Caldwell 3 more times. Voicemail, voicemail, voicemail. She left increasingly urgent messages. She tried Veronica's number and got a recording that the phone was powered off, probably somewhere over the Atlantic by now. Dr. Reeves, the pediatric surgeon, arrived with the urgency of someone who'd seen the X-rays before entering the room. She was in her 50s, grey hair pulled back, with the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who'd spent decades making life-or-death decisions. I'm Dr. Sarah Reeves, she said, extending her hand to Ruth before turning her full attention to Harper. Harper, sweetie, I've looked at pictures of your tummy from the inside. There's something in there that shouldn't be, and it's blocking food from going where it needs to go. That's why you feel so sick. What kind of something? Ruth asked, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her gut. Dr. Reeves pulled up the X-ray on a tablet, angling it so Ruth could see. There's a radio-opaque object lodged in her upper GI tract, right about here. She pointed to a bright white mass that stood out starkly against the grey background. It's roughly 3 centimeters, oval-shaped. At first, I thought maybe she swallowed a coin or a small toy, but the density is unusual. And the positioning suggests it's been there for several days. 3 days, Harper whispered. That's when it started hurting. Did you swallow something, Harper? Dr. Reeves asked gently. Sometimes kids accidentally swallow things. You won't be in trouble if you did. Harper's face crumpled. I don't remember swallowing anything. I promise, I don't remember. The terror in her voice sent chills down Ruth's spine. She didn't remember, or she was too afraid to say. It's possible she aspirated something in her sleep, Dr. Chen offered, or during a meal and didn't realize it went down. Possible, Dr. Reeves said, though her tone suggested skepticism. But we need to remove it immediately. She's dehydrated, her electrolytes are off, and there's a risk of perforation if it shifts. I'm recommending emergency endoscopy to extract the object. How quickly? Ruth asked. I can have an OR ready in 90 minutes. Do it. Wait. Dr. Reeves touched Ruth's arm. I need parental consent for a minor's surgery. Are you Harper's legal guardian? I'm her nanny. Her mother is on a plane to Paris. Her father isn't answering his phone. Then we have a problem. Without parental consent, unless this is immediately life-threatening. She's vomiting blood. Ruth's voice rose, despite her efforts to stay calm. How is that not life-threatening? I agree with you, but legally... Ruth's phone rang. Marcus Caldwell, finally. She stepped away from Harper's bed, lowering her voice. Mr. Caldwell, your daughter is in the emergency room at Hartford General. She has a foreign object lodged in her GI tract and needs emergency surgery. What? His voice carried the distraction of someone still looking at spreadsheets. What kind of object? How did it get there? They don't know yet. That's why they need to operate. They need your consent. Put the doctor on. Ruth handed the phone to Dr. Reeves, who explained the situation in clinical terms. Ruth watched Harper, who'd closed her eyes, exhausted from pain and fear. She looked even smaller on the adult-sized hospital bed, swallowed up by white sheets and medical equipment. Dr. Reeves handed the phone back. He's given verbal consent. I have him recorded. We're taking her up now. Everything happened quickly after that. Harper was prepped for surgery, given medication that made her drowsy and compliant. Ruth held her hand until they wheeled her through the operating room doors, watching that small blonde head disappear behind stainless steel. You did the right thing bringing her in, Dr. Chen said, appearing at Ruth's elbow. Another day and we'd be dealing with sepsis, possibly worse. What do you think it is? The object? Dr. Chen hesitated. Off the record, the shape and density. It could be a medication capsule, a large one, the kind used for extended release formulations. Why would a 6-year-old have that in her stomach? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? He met her eyes. Sometimes kids get into medicine cabinets. Sometimes... He stopped himself. I'm going to wait for the pathology report before speculating. But Ruth heard what he didn't say. Sometimes it wasn't an accident. She sank into a waiting room chair, her phone buzzing constantly. Marcus Caldwell, now fully engaged, demanding updates every 15 minutes. Her sister wondering why she wasn't answering family texts. And one more message from that unknown number. You were told to handle this quietly. There will be consequences. Ruth stared at that message until the words blurred. Who was threatening her? Veronica, from 30,000 feet. Someone else? And why? 93 minutes later, Dr. Reeves emerged from the OR, still in surgical scrubs, her expression carefully neutral. Ruth jumped to her feet, her heart hammering against her ribs. She's stable, Dr. Reeves said immediately. The procedure went well. She's in recovery now. What was it? What did you find? Dr. Reeves gestured toward a quieter corner of the waiting room, away from other families. She pulled a sealed plastic bag from her pocket. Inside was a capsule, large, clear, and disturbingly intact, despite 3 days in a child's stomach. It's a time-release medication capsule, Dr. Reeves said quietly. But it's not any standard pharmaceutical I recognize. The casing is unusually thick, designed to dissolve very slowly. Inside is a combination of substances that we've sent for toxicology analysis. Ruth stared at the capsule, her nursing training clicking pieces together that formed a horrifying picture. You're saying someone gave this to her deliberately, to hurt her. I'm saying this isn't something a 6-year-old would accidentally swallow. The size alone. Dr. Reeves shook her head. I've already contacted hospital security and filed a mandatory report with Child Protective Services. This is a case of suspected child endangerment, possibly attempted poisoning. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Ruth thought about Veronica's dismissive attitude, her eagerness to leave, her instructions not to force Harper to eat, about the threatening texts, about Marcus's absence. One of her parents did this, Ruth said flatly. I can't make that accusation without proof, but Ruth, Dr. Reeves touched her arm. You saved that child's life. If you'd waited even one more day for parental permission, if you'd followed the mother's instructions to ignore Harper's complaints, we'd be having a very different conversation right now. Ruth's phone rang again. Marcus Caldwell, for the 10th time. Mr. Caldwell, she answered, her voice ice-cold now. Your daughter is out of surgery. Thank God. What did they find? He sounded genuinely relieved, but Ruth had learned that people could fake anything. A medication capsule, a large one. The doctors don't know how it got there. Joe, she let the silence stretch. Do you know how it got there, Mr. Caldwell? What? No! How would I? What are you implying? I'm implying that your 6-year-old daughter had a foreign object lodged in her throat that nearly killed her, and nobody in her own home noticed she was dying for 3 days. Now wait just a damn minute. No, you wait. The hospital has filed a report with CPS. There's going to be an investigation, and when they ask me what I observed today, I'm going to tell them everything. The neglect, the threats, the fact that your wife knew Harper couldn't eat and told me to leave her alone. Threats? What threats? For the first time, Marcus sounded genuinely confused rather than defensive. Ruth took a breath, forcing herself to think clearly. Someone has been sending me messages, telling me to handle this quietly and warning me about consequences. Forward them to me. Right now. She did, watching the 3 dots appear and disappear as he typed and deleted several responses. When he called back, his voice had changed completely. Harder, colder, terrifyingly focused. That's not my wife's number. I know all her numbers. Ruth, I'm going to ask you something, and I need absolute honesty. Do you think someone is trying to hurt Harper? Intentionally? Yes. Then we have a serious problem. I'm 20 minutes from the hospital. Don't let anyone take Harper anywhere. Don't let anyone except medical staff near her. Do you understand? I understand. And Ruth, thank you for not listening to whatever bullshit instructions you were given. Thank you for saving my daughter. The line went dead. Ruth walked back toward the recovery area where Harper would wake up soon, confused and scared. Dr. Reeves intercepted her. There's something else you need to know, the surgeon said, her voice even quieter now. When we removed the capsule, I noticed scarring in her esophagus, old scarring. This isn't the first time someone has hurt this child. It's just the first time someone cared enough to stop it. Ruth felt everything inside her go cold and still. How long? How long has someone been doing this to her? Months, maybe. The scarring suggests repeated trauma. Small burns, possibly from forcing her to swallow things she shouldn't. And there are older healed injuries we found during the exam, bruises in various stages of healing on her arms and ribs, carefully hidden under clothing. Jesus Christ! Yeah! Dr. Reeves handed her a folder. This is everything I'm giving to CPS. Medical photos, toxicology orders, the whole 9 yards. But Ruth, this family has money, serious money. And money makes evidence disappear. It makes investigators back off. It makes victims afraid to testify. What are you saying? I'm saying that little girl needs someone willing to fight for her, even if it costs them everything. Someone who can't be bought or scared away. Dr. Reeves met her eyes. Do you know anyone like that? Ruth thought about her mortgage, her bills, her comfortable, safe, predictable life in Hartford. She thought about job security and professional references and not making powerful people angry. Then she thought about Harper's eyes, full of pain and fear and desperate hope. Yeah, Ruth said, I know someone exactly like that. She walked into the recovery room where Harper was beginning to stir, small hands reaching instinctively for her stomach. Ruth took one of those hands in hers, holding on tight. It's okay, baby girl, she whispered. I've got you now, and I'm not letting go. Outside the hospital, dark clouds gathered over Connecticut. Inside, Harper Caldwell opened her eyes and saw someone who finally saw her back. The real fight, against whoever had tried to kill this child, was just beginning. But for the first time in 3 days, Harper smiled, and that made Ruth willing to fight any battle that came next. Marcus Caldwell burst through the hospital doors like a man possessed. At 38, he looked every inch the billionaire CEO, tailored suit, expensive watch, the kind of presence that made people instinctively step aside. But his face was pale, his eyes wild, with something Ruth recognized as genuine terror. Where is she? He demanded, spotting Ruth outside the recovery room. Sleeping. The surgery went well, but Mr. Caldwell... Marcus! Call me Marcus. He ran a hand through his dark hair, disheveling it for the first time probably ever. I need to see her. You can, but we need to talk first. Ruth blocked his path, not intimidated by his wealth or his urgency. The doctors found evidence of prolonged abuse. This wasn't the first time someone hurt Harper. How did you not know your daughter was being tortured? The word tortured hit him like a physical blow. He staggered back, bracing himself against the wall. What are you talking about? Harper's fine. She's always been fine, quiet maybe, a little shy, but she has scarring in her esophagus from repeated trauma, bruises in various stages of healing. She's been systematically abused for months, possibly longer, and you never noticed. Ruth's voice was hard, unforgiving. She'd seen too many parents make excuses, but Marcus's reaction wasn't defensive. It was devastation. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know. I work 16-hour days. I thought... His voice cracked. I thought Veronica was taking care of her. I thought Harper was okay. When's the last time you actually spent time with your daughter? Had a real conversation with her? The silence that followed was damning. That's what I thought, Ruth said coldly. Harper's been dying in plain sight, and nobody cared enough to look. I care! Marcus's shout echoed down the sterile hallway. She's my daughter, He pressed his palms against his eyes, breathing hard. When he looked up again, tears streaked his face. I failed her. Christ, I completely failed her. Ruth's anger softened slightly. At least he could admit it. The question now is what you're going to do about it, because whoever put that capsule in Harper is still out there, and they sent me threatening messages. Marcus's expression transformed from grief to fury in an instant. Show me everything. They moved to a private waiting room where Ruth pulled up the messages on her phone. Marcus studied them, his jaw tightening with each word. This number is registered to a burner phone purchased 3 weeks ago in Hartford. I already had my security team start tracing it. You have a security team. I have a lot of things you don't know about, Ruth. I built Caldwell Industries from nothing. You don't get to where I am without making enemies, powerful enemies. He looked up from the phone. I thought my family was safe. I thought the threats were always about me, about business. I never imagined that someone would go after your child. Veronica wouldn't do this. He said it like he was trying to convince himself. She's selfish, yes, absent. She loves shopping and traveling more than she loves motherhood. But poisoning Harper? No, that's not who she is. Then who? A woman in a severe grey suit entered before Marcus could answer. She had the officious manner of someone who wielded bureaucratic power like a weapon. Mr. Caldwell, I'm Sandra Hoffman from Child Protective Services. I need to speak with you about your daughter. What followed was an hour of intense questioning. Ruth sat beside Marcus as Sandra methodically documented every failure, every instance of neglect, every red flag that painted a picture of a family too wealthy to be bothered with actual parenting. To his credit, Marcus didn't make excuses. He answered honestly, even when the truth made him look terrible. Harper will need to be placed in protective custody pending investigation, Sandra finally said. Given the severity of the abuse and the ongoing threat, no. Marcus's voice was absolute. She stays with me. Mr. Caldwell, I understand this is difficult, but you don't understand anything. Marcus leaned forward, his businessman persona back in full force. My daughter was poisoned in my home by someone with access to my family. If you take her into state custody, you make her an easier target. Foster homes, group facilities, they're not equipped to handle someone who has the resources to hurt a child this methodically. Sandra's expression didn't change. That's not how this works. Then we'll make it work differently. Ruth Morrison stays as Harper's primary caretaker. I hire round-the-clock security. We move to a secure location. You have full access for monitoring, random checks, whatever you need. But Harper stays with people who will actually protect her. Mr. Caldwell, I failed my daughter once. I won't do it again. His voice dropped to something raw and desperate. Please, I'm begging you. Let me keep her safe. Ruth watched Sandra's face soften almost imperceptibly. The woman pulled out her phone, stepped away for a hushed conversation, then returned with pursed lips. Provisional custody with conditions. Miss Morrison remains as primary caretaker with CPS oversight. You provide documentation of security measures. Harper undergoes weekly counseling, and if there's even a hint that she's in danger, she goes into protective custody immediately. Understood? Understood. After Sandra left, Marcus turned to Ruth. Thank you for staying. I haven't agreed to stay. I'll triple your salary, quadruple it, name your price. It's not about money, Mr. Caldwell. Marcus, it's about whether I can actually keep Harper safe, because right now I don't know who's trying to kill her or why. Ruth held his gaze. And until we figure that out, she's not safe anywhere. Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his face went white. Veronica just landed in Paris. She's calling, asking about Harper. Don't tell her anything specific, just that Harper had a medical emergency and is recovering. You think it's her. I think we don't know who to trust. And trust is a luxury Harper can't afford right now. They walked together to Harper's room. The little girl was awake now, groggy but alert. When she saw Marcus, her expression flickered through confusion, hope and fear in rapid succession. "Daddy?" Her small voice broke Ruth's heart all over again. Marcus crossed the room in 3 strides, dropping to his knees beside her bed. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm so sorry I wasn't here before, but I'm here now." He took her tiny hand in both of his. "And I promise, I swear to you, nobody is ever going to hurt you again." Harper's eyes filled with tears. "Really, really." Marcus looked at Ruth over his shoulder, and in that moment she made her decision. "Really," Ruth echoed. "We're going to keep you safe, Harper. Both of us." But even as she said it, Ruth's phone buzzed with another message from the unknown number. The capsule was just the beginning. "If the child lives, everyone she loves will pay. You were warned." Ruth deleted it before Marcus could see, her mind racing. This wasn't just about Harper anymore. This was about destroying Marcus Caldwell by destroying everything he cared about. And that made Harper, and now Ruth, expendable casualties in someone else's war. The question was, whose war? And how many more battles would they have to fight before Harper could finally be safe? 3 days later, Harper was discharged from Hartford General to a location Ruth didn't know existed, a Caldwell Industries corporate safe house in rural Massachusetts. The estate was smaller than the Connecticut mansion, but far more secure, with cameras covering every angle and security personnel that made Ruth feel simultaneously safer and more paranoid. Marcus had moved in with them, working from a home office, appearing at meals, actually present in a way that clearly confused Harper. The little girl watched her father like he was a stranger, performing an elaborate act that might end at any moment. Ruth established routines, gentle, predictable, safe. Harper's appetite returned slowly. She managed crackers, then soup, then gradually more substantial meals. But she barely spoke, and she never asked about her mother. Veronica had returned from Paris after 2 days, demanding to see Harper. Marcus had refused. The screaming match that followed, conducted via speakerphone while Ruth sat with Harper in another room, revealed cracks in a marriage that had apparently been broken for years. "You never wanted her," Veronica had shrieked. "You were too busy building your empire to notice you had a family. And you were too busy spending my money to actually be a mother." The irony wasn't lost on Ruth that they were fighting about who failed Harper worse, rather than who tried to kill her. On the 4th evening, Ruth found Harper in the estate's library, curled up in an oversized chair, with a picture book she wasn't reading. The little girl looked up when Ruth entered, her dark eyes holding that same too old sadness. "Can I ask you something?" Harper's voice was barely a whisper. "Anything, sweetheart. Why are you still here?" "Mommy said nannies never stay long because I'm too difficult." Ruth sat down beside Harper's chair, her heart aching. "Your mommy was wrong about a lot of things, and you're not difficult, Harper. You're a brave, strong little girl who's been hurt by people who should have protected you." "Do you know who hurt me?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Ruth had been dreading it, but Harper deserved honesty. "Not yet, but we're trying to find out." "I don't think it was Mommy," Harper said quietly. "She doesn't like me, but she wouldn't. She wouldn't do that, would she?" Before Ruth could answer, Marcus appeared in the doorway, his face grave. "Ruth, I need you to come with me, now." Something in his tone made Ruth's blood run cold. She kissed Harper's forehead. "Stay here, okay? I'll be right back." In Marcus's office, 2 men in dark suits stood beside his desk. The older one, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, introduced himself as Detective Frank Morrison from the Connecticut State Police. "No relation?" he asked Ruth, nodding at her last name. "Not that I know of." "Ms. Morrison, we've been investigating the capsule found in Harper Caldwell's stomach. The toxicology report came back today." He pulled out a folder. The substance inside was a combination of slow-release benzodiazepines and opioids, enough to keep a child sedated and compliant without killing her immediately. Over time, it would have caused organ failure that looked like natural illness. Ruth felt sick. Someone was drugging her, slowly poisoning her. Not just drugging her, training her. The detective's voice was grim. We found Harper's medical records. Multiple visits to her pediatrician over the past 8 months for various complaints. Stomach aches, headaches, fatigue. The doctor prescribed increasingly stronger medications, all of which Harper's mother picked up from the pharmacy. Marcus's face had gone grey. You're saying Veronica was giving Harper prescription medications, but that doesn't explain the capsule. The capsule wasn't prescription medication, Mr. Caldwell. It was custom-made, likely in an unlicensed lab. Which means someone with significant resources and knowledge created it specifically to hurt your daughter. Detective Morrison paused. We also found something interesting in your home security footage. Your wife didn't tamper with it, but someone else did. He pulled up laptop footage showing the Caldwell mansion's kitchen, timestamp showing 3 weeks ago. A figure entered, not Veronica, but a tall man in dark clothing, face obscured by a baseball cap. He moved with purpose, opening the refrigerator, placing something inside, and leaving within 90 seconds. We ran facial recognition with what we could see, the detective continued. Partial match to a man named Derek Winters. He works for Grayson Pharmaceuticals. The name hit Marcus like a bomb. His face transformed from confusion to rage to devastating understanding in seconds. No, it can't be. You know him? Ruth asked. Grayson Pharmaceuticals is owned by Richard Grayson. He and I were business partners 15 years ago, before I bought him out of what became Caldwell Industries. Marcus's voice was hollow. It wasn't a friendly separation. He sued me, lost everything. I haven't heard from him in over a decade. Until 3 months ago, Detective Morrison said, pulling out more documents. Grayson filed for bankruptcy. His company is drowning in debt and lawsuits, and according to records we've obtained, he blames you for destroying his life. So this is revenge, Ruth said slowly, pieces clicking into place. He's not trying to kill Harper. He's trying to destroy you by making you watch your daughter suffer. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. Where is he? Where is Richard Grayson? That's the problem. He disappeared 4 days ago, right after Harper was hospitalized. We have an APB out, but the detective's phone rang. He answered, his expression darkening. I see. We're on our way. He hung up and looked at Marcus. Richard Grayson's body was just found in a Hartford hotel room. Apparent suicide. He left a note. The room spun. Ruth grabbed the desk for support. What did it say? That Marcus Caldwell destroyed him. So he destroyed Caldwell's legacy in return. That Harper would have died slowly, painfully, while Caldwell was too busy to notice. That this was justice. Marcus made a sound like a wounded animal. He's dead. He killed himself and Harper. Harper almost died because of me, because of a business deal I made 15 years ago. Mr. Caldwell, the detective said firmly, you didn't put that capsule in your daughter's stomach. Richard Grayson did. His choices, his actions, his responsibility, not yours. But Ruth could see Marcus didn't believe it. The guilt was eating him alive. Is it over? Ruth asked. Is Harper safe now? Grayson worked alone as far as we can tell. With him dead, the immediate threat is neutralized. But Ms. Morrison, Detective Morrison met her eyes. Those text messages you received, they weren't from Grayson. The phone was purchased and registered to someone else, someone who knew what Grayson was doing and helped him. The floor dropped out from under Ruth's world. Who? We're still investigating, but whoever it is, they're still out there, and they might not be finished. Later that night, after the detectives left and Marcus had shut himself in his office, Ruth returned to the library. Harper was exactly where she'd left her, still clutching the unread book. Is the bad man gone? Harper asked. Ruth's breath caught. How did you know? I heard Daddy shouting. He sounded scared. Harper's lower lip trembled. I don't want people to be scared because of me. Ruth gathered the little girl into her arms, holding her close. Oh, sweetheart, nobody is scared because of you. We're scared for you, because we love you and want you safe. Daddy loves me. Harper's voice was so small, so full of desperate hope. Yes, baby, your daddy loves you very, very much. He just forgot how to show it, but he's remembering now. Harper clung to Ruth, her small body shaking with silent sobs. And Ruth held her, rocking gently, making promises she prayed she could keep. Because somewhere out there, someone who helped torture a 6-year-old was still free, and Ruth had a terrible feeling that the worst was yet to come. The answer came in the last place anyone expected, from Veronica herself. 2 weeks after Richard Grayson's death, Veronica arrived at the safe house demanding to see Harper. Marcus met her at the gate, their argument escalating until Ruth intervened, suggesting they speak civilly indoors while Harper was napping. Veronica looked terrible. Designer clothes couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes or the weight she'd lost. She paced Marcus's office like a caged animal. "I want my daughter back," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Your daughter nearly died while in your care," Marcus said coldly. "You have no rights here." "I didn't know. I swear to God, Marcus, I didn't know what Richard was doing." The room went silent. Ruth's blood turned to ice. "What did you just say?" Marcus's voice was deadly quiet. Veronica's face crumpled. "I didn't know he would hurt her. I thought he just wanted to scare you, to make you pay attention to something other than work for once." "You knew Richard Grayson was targeting our family?" Marcus stood slowly, his control visibly fraying. "You knew and you said nothing?" "He contacted me 6 months ago." Veronica's words came faster now, desperate. "He said you destroyed his life. He wanted help getting close to you, to Harper. He said he just wanted to expose you as a bad father, get media attention, maybe cost you some business deals. He offered me money. You sold access to our daughter for money." Ruth couldn't stay silent anymore. "What kind of mother?" "I'm not a good mother," Veronica screamed. "I know that. I never wanted kids. I wanted Marcus's money and his status, and Harper was just... she was just something that happened, something I had to deal with." She collapsed into a chair, sobbing, "But I didn't know he would hurt her. I swear, when Richard asked me to fire Harper's previous nanny and hire someone he recommended, I thought he just wanted someone to report back on Marcus's schedule. When he sent me messages about handling things quietly, I thought he meant avoiding scandal. I didn't know—" "The nanny he recommended," Ruth interrupted. "What was her name? Something with an E, Elena?" "No. Elise Morgan." Marcus was already on his phone, calling Detective Morrison. Ruth's mind raced through implications. The previous nanny had access to Harper for how long? 4 months. She quit suddenly 2 weeks before. Veronica's eyes widened. "Before I hired you, oh God." Richard wanted her gone before Harper got too sick, so she wouldn't be there when Harper died. Marcus finished, his voice hollow. "So Elise could disappear, and you'd be the one blamed, while I suffered losing my daughter and my wife going to prison." "We need to find Elise Morgan," Detective Morrison's voice came through the speakerphone. "Now, if she was administering the drugs and planted the capsule, she's the one who sent the threatening messages," Ruth realized. "She's the loose end Richard left behind, and if she thinks we're getting close..." A crash from upstairs sent all 3 adults running. Ruth reached Harper's room first, bursting through the door to find the window open, curtains billowing in the wind. Harper's bed was empty. "No!" Ruth's scream echoed through the house. She ran to the window, looking down at the ground 2 stories below. No body, thank God, but fresh footprints in the garden soil leading toward the woods. Security alarms blared. Armed guards converged on the property, but Ruth was already running, following the footprints with Marcus right behind her. The trail led into the dense Massachusetts forest, darker now as the sun set. "Harper!" Marcus's voice cracked with terror. "Harper, where are you? Daddy!" The small voice came from somewhere ahead, frightened and close. They found her 50 yards into the woods, pressed against a tree trunk, tears streaming down her face. But she wasn't alone. A woman held her, tall, dark-haired, familiar from the security footage, Elise Morgan, and she had a knife pressed to Harper's throat. "Stop right there," Elise commanded. Her eyes were wild, desperate. All of this was supposed to be simple. Richard promised nobody would get hurt. Just some bad press for the great Marcus Caldwell. Show the world what a neglectful father he was. But then you... She glared at Ruth. You had to interfere. You took her to the hospital. You ruined everything. Please, Marcus begged, hands raised. Let Harper go. This is between us. No, it's between you and everyone whose lives you've destroyed, building your empire. Richard lost everything because of you. His family, his company, his dignity. He deserved justice. Justice isn't torturing a 6-year-old. Ruth kept her voice steady, despite the terror clawing at her throat. Harper never hurt anyone. She's innocent. Nobody in the Caldwell family is innocent. Elise's knife hand trembled. The capsule should have killed her slowly, painlessly. She would have just gone to sleep and never woken up. But you saved her, so now... Her voice broke. Now I have to finish what Richard started. I owe him that much. Harper whimpered, frozen with fear. Ruth saw the little girl's eyes lock on hers. Not on Marcus, on Ruth. Looking for the person who'd always protected her. And Ruth knew what she had to do. Okay, Ruth said quietly. Okay, you want to hurt someone. Hurt me instead. Let Harper go. Take me hostage. I'm the one who ruined your plan. Ruth, no, Marcus started. I mean it, Elise. Harper is a child. She can't defend herself, but I can. I'll fight. I'll make it more satisfying. Isn't that what you want? To hurt someone who actually deserves it? Elise's eyes flickered with consideration. The knife wavered. Let her go, Ruth said, taking a step forward. And you can do whatever you want to me. Don't listen to her, Marcus shouted. Elise, the police are surrounding these woods. There's no escape. But if you let Harper go now, if you don't hurt her, that matters. That means something. It means I failed Richard. Elise's face twisted with grief and rage. Everything I did, giving Harper those pills, hiding the capsule in her food, keeping Marcus distracted while she suffered, it was all for Richard, and now he's dead and I'm... Her moment of distraction was all Marcus needed. He lunged forward, tackling Elise away from Harper. The knife went flying. Ruth grabbed Harper, pulling her back as Marcus and Elise struggled on the forest floor. Security guards burst through the trees, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Within seconds, Elise was restrained, screaming obscenities and promises of vengeance. But Harper was safe in Ruth's arms, clinging to her like a lifeline. You're okay, Ruth whispered over and over. You're safe now. I've got you. I've got you. Marcus crawled over to them, dirt-stained and bleeding from a cut on his cheek, and wrapped his arms around both of them. I'm sorry. He sobbed into Harper's hair. I'm so sorry, baby girl, for everything, for not protecting you, for not seeing what was happening. I'm sorry. Harper's small arms reached out, including her father in the embrace. It's okay, Daddy. You saved me. Ruth saved you, Marcus said, looking at the nanny with gratitude that transcended words. Ruth saved all of us. 4 months later, Harper Caldwell celebrated her 7th birthday in the Connecticut mansion, now thoroughly swept for security threats and remodeled to feel less like a museum and more like a home. Ruth had been given legal guardianship papers, but tore them up. Harper had a father now, present and engaged, and they didn't need legal documents to make Ruth part of their family. Veronica had been arrested for accessory to attempted murder. Elise Morgan was awaiting trial. The Caldwell Foundation had established a children's advocacy program in Harper's name, helping kids who suffered in silence the way Harper had. As Harper blew out her birthday candles, surrounded by new friends from her new school and the father who'd learned what really mattered, Ruth watched with quiet satisfaction. The little girl who couldn't eat was now healthy and thriving. The child who'd been too frightened to speak now laughed freely. Harper opened her eyes after making her wish and looked directly at Ruth, mouthing, "Thank you." Ruth smiled back, thinking about the days she'd stood at those iron gates, wondering if taking this job was the right choice. She'd lost her comfortable life, gained death threats and trauma, and fought battles she never anticipated. But she'd also saved a life that deserved saving. And sometimes that was all that mattered. Marcus appeared at Ruth's side, Harper perched on his hip, something that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. Ruth watched Harper giggle as her friends presented her with gifts, this little girl who'd survived so much and still found reasons to smile. "I'm thinking," Ruth said, "that sometimes the worst day of your life leads you exactly where you need to be." Marcus nodded, understanding in his eyes. "She asked me last night if you'd ever leave. What did you tell her? That you'd stay as long as she needed you. But Ruth," he looked at her seriously, "we need you. Not as an employee, as family, so please don't ever leave." Ruth looked at Harper, this brave little fighter who'd captured her heart completely, and knew she'd already made her choice months ago in that hospital corridor. "I'm not going anywhere," she promised. "Not now, not ever." And for the first time since Richard Grayson had set his terrible plan in motion, the Caldwell house filled with something it had never truly held before. The sound of genuine, unconditional love. The kind that couldn't be bought with billions or destroyed by revenge. The kind that saved lives and built futures and proved that sometimes the most unlikely families were the strongest ones. Harper had survived the worst thing that could happen to a child. And now, surrounded by people who actually loved her, she would have the chance to do more than survive. She would thrive.